so beautifully.
I would just like to add that YouTube is also placing restrictions on us. So this presentation is not intended for that. And if anyone does go in that direction, please do so at your own free will. This is part of the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute, and I want to welcome all the knowledge seekers on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. This is the North American Corona team meeting. And as we know, we have many people outside of North America who are coming here. And I can't tell you how much we appreciate that. It's a really big boost. And we frankly need it. Because when we say North America, it's not to exclude South America. South America is absolutely blossoming with the Keshe Foundation Brazilian team, the Hispanic team, and we're struggling a little bit here in Canada. And I would just like to acknowledge that this is a universal platform. In other words, all the souls on this planet are coming together, whether they show up at this meeting at this time or sometime in the future or sometime in outer space.
And it only takes one, Mr. Keshe said, just one.
Okay, carry on, Mark.
No, I was just saying, it only takes one. He keeps emphasizing this to enlighten all the others. So thank you, Alex. You could be the one.
Well, I have good news for you. We have over 300 million knowledge seekers around the world. And so we are maybe simply one order of magnitude from delivering peace on this planet. This is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute Plasma Science. The subject is dilution. This is part of the intermediate knowing. My name is Alexander. I'm from Canada. It is November 28th, 2021. And this is part of the Keshe Foundation North America Plasma Education Series. I am going to talk slower. I'm going to really try and talk slower. And I welcome the other communities in the background that are doing simultaneous translation. So I hope I don't get carried away because I do have a lot to talk about. We have a new member, as you know, we have the Canadians here, the Americans, and the Spanish community. But we have a new member, and that's the United States of Emergency. And I just want to update that we still have the 2 states of emergency there. The bridges are still broken, and so part of Canada is severed from the other part of Canada. And then, of course, we still have the state of pandemic after 23 months. And it's not just us, it's the world as well. And in parts of Canada, this state of pandemic has been extended till March 22nd of 2022. So the United States of Emergency are actually growing. And the Keshe Foundation is also growing. And so the education, it becomes a very important part of this growing because we try and make semblance of what's going on. And so in front of you here is a basic history of what we've been trying to accomplish in the last year. We started with basic teaching, and we have to have our own terminology. We went into intermediate teaching and advanced teaching, but that became an extension of the basic teaching. Then we went into basic understanding, and we extended to intermediate and advanced understanding. And really all that is still basic. And we thought, well, maybe let's cross this bridge. We went through the basic knowing and the intermediate knowing. And this has been ongoing now for 11 weeks. And in many ways, I'm disappointed because the whole purpose of this section is to differentiate between the plasma state and the physical state. And we need to be able to know which state we're operating in. We can't know everything, so we have to make a connection. And this has delayed us in many ways because today we're going to be talking about something that I personally have not been talking about, and that is dilution and what it means. So today's subject is dilution. Before I get into that, I just want to discuss a topic of ignorance. And ignorance is not necessarily a bad quality, because to be ignorant, you could be only unaware. But sometimes ignorance is being aware, but being unwilling. And for many of us, you know, we can't cross this bridge of understanding, this bridge of knowing. We don't know how to cross this bridge. But it's a whole different story if you don't want to cross the bridge. And this is where we are now, because we are on the verge of establishing world peace. And what does it mean? So when we look at the fundamentals, and in science, these are the periodic table of elements, the fact is that they are elementary. And so this is a very good educational tool. But life is much more complex. So in fact, the sum of the parts is greater than the sum of the parts. Knowing the details is not as important as the details of knowing. And this becomes quite apparent when we look closely at specifically one section of the periodic table of elements. And these are the elements that we have talked about with respect to the GANS technology. And so we have the carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen, which represents the amino acid. We have the copper, which represents the physicality, and the zinc, which represents the emotional, and the iron, which represents the connection and the anchorage. And then, of course, we have the sodium and the potassium and magnesium and calcium, which creates a salt environment. But if we look at hydrogen, we find that it is kind of in between here and there, and it doesn't really have its own position because we don't really understand what hydrogen is. And so to try and clarify, one of the problems we had was with the terminology. So we know that we have a principal matter and we have amino acids. And so we introduced carbon as a link between those two. And so the principal matter is in the plasma state and the amino acid is in the physical state, and the carbon would be the link. And if you've been following the teachings, so you know that from there we have star formations, plasma state, dynamic plasma states. And so from there, there's a residue. And from there, there's a conversion. So to try and clarify things, we did start with terminology. So we wanted to add to terminology. So this was my proposal several weeks ago. And I'm hoping it does get adopted by the knowledge seekers. So we talked about carbogen, which is the plasma link with the amino acid. The mattergen, which is the plasmatic matter as opposed to the physical matter. And the plasmagen, which is the creation of plasma. And that it being the precursor of physicality. So we still have confusion. And thought was possibly to change the name of hydrogen, because that is in the plasma state, to hydron, and likewise oxygen to oxon and nitrogen to nitron. And the purpose of this is to differentiate between the plasma condition and the physical condition. This proposal is probably fruitless. And the reason for that is because the hydrogen, as we know it, has been discovered over 200 years ago. So we have a scientific carryover, a scientific hangover. So we really don't want to dwell in the past. So if I abandon that and just clarify, so let's look at what advanced technology means. And right now, there is a tremendous, what do you call it? You call it hysteria with respect to electric vehicles, right? And the year is 2021. If it was 1971, I could really get excited about electric cars. But that would have been advanced technology back then. Today, it's not so very advanced. What it is advanced in is in our adoption within our physicality. So the way I look at this is a massive investment in our past. And when we invest in our past, we're robbing for the future. Electric cars have already been replaced by hydrogen technology. But the hydrogen technology goes back many, many years as well. And it is in the physical state. And it has a direct connotation to the hydrogen bomb. So this is hard to change. And this is why I'm saying, well, we will abandon that change because, again, it is an investment in the past. A decade ago, we were talking about flying cars. Well, the big problem, of course, with flying cars is that they had to still have wheels and had to be connected to the ground. And in many ways, we were stopped. And this has been a positive, because now that is also in the past. And of course, depending on how far in the past you wish to go, there's also a nuclear connection. So we see a nuclear connection with the hydrogen bomb. We see the nuclear connection with nuclear energy. And then, of course, we see the nuclear connection with UFOs. And these UFOs, well, as the disclosures are coming, we're seeing that actually may go back in the past to before World War II. So these are not advanced technologies. These are all obsolete. And so we, as Earth space beings, we are composites, and we are still with training wheels. So we are basically composite four-wheelers. And so the key point of this particular discussion is that advanced technology is advanced. And so we need to cross that bridge, whether we want to or not. So to help us cross that bridge, I just want to add to this proposal where we adopt new terminology: carbogen, mattergen, plasmagen. But the purpose is to discuss pre-amino acid state or post-amino acid state. Because in the pre-amino acid state, that is the plasma state. And in the post-amino acid state, that is the physical state. So I propose to add one more word, aminogen, to differentiate the pre-amino acid with the post-amino acid physical condition. And now we can get into book number 1, The Universal Order of the Creation of Matters, as put forward by Marin Tevkolikesh. And this has to do with the plasma science. And we've been trying to teach, understand, and connect through knowing. What is plasma dilution? So I'm just taking a small excerpt out of page 154 of book number 1. At the inception of plasma, the antimatter components of the plasma were created by the stronger plasmatic magnetic fields. The future is plasmatic magnetical fields based through the production of controlled plasmatic dilution technology reactors. We are still in basic teaching. This is advanced, very advanced. And so we're just introducing this topic in this particular class today, because it is from this plasma dilution that we get into book number 2, The Structure of Light, which allows us to go from here to there. Where is here and where is there? Well, that all depends if book number 3 should be book number 1, but that doesn't matter because it goes both ways. You see, the origin of the universe is based on plasma science and how the energy goes in all different directions. So it's time for us to stop living in the past and cross the bridge into the new tomorrow. We've always been looking forward to tomorrow, but the tomorrow that we're faced with today is the tomorrow of the past, and the new tomorrow is the tomorrow of the future. So we begin the creation of the universe. The universe exists from energy, and this energy is always in motion. And so because it's in motion, it has to have a charge so that we know which direction we're going. And so when this energy comes together, as we see in the cover of book number 1, we see the creation of matter. And in that creation of matter, we have antimatter, dark matter, and mattergen. And that is one field. And when you take 2 fields and interact them together and connect them with an infinity loop, now you have more. you have more than what you started with. And in fact, 1 + 1 is more than 2. This is not only the new math, but this is the plasma math. So let's review some terminology. In plasma science, magnetic and gravitational field forces are the basics. And this is a natural plasma. And so natural plasma deals with energy and motion. And it goes through various geometries. And it goes through various dimensions. So the geometries can be in one dimension, and the geometries can be in another dimension. And so we have multiple dimensions. And we can go within a dimension, and through the gradients, change the energy field strength, which we call dynamism. But we can also change through gradient field strengths dimensions. And that too is dynamism. So maybe that sounds a little bit confusing. And we're trying to clarify the picture, you see, because energy follows a path. And so on this Earth, we have a path where the Earth is a rotating planet and we are on it. But please note that most of us are not dizzy. We are able to stand on this planet and rotate with it. And we see that energy comes in, goes out, and because it keeps moving, it goes around. And if it is not compatible, it will go right on through. So I just want to repeat for Andreas, the energy comes in, goes out, goes around because it keeps moving. But if it's not compatible, it will go right on through. So if the energy is going out, we say that is magnetical. And because it's going out, that is emission. In magnetical terms, we call that repulsion. The opposite to that is gravitational, which is attraction. And as the energy comes in, it has to be absorbed. So our field of reference as humans is between the ground and the sky. So we see that the sky is the magnetosphere, which is the magnetical limit of the Earth. And for us, the gravitational limit is the ground. But there's more to that. From our standpoint, what we're concerned about is the susceptibility. How do we relate to our environment? So we said that the Earth is rotating, and that rotation is physical. But in a plasmatic state, the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere also rotate. So there are two rotating hemispheres. And so we see that there's a plasmatic rotating field and a physical rotating field. And then we are involved with this. And so we have a DNA combination, which is working with the RNA DNA. And we have two hemispheres, and they're working in combination. So let's investigate that through the rest of this class. So we say susceptibility is that something is something. The key point is that nothing is nothing. So therefore, something is either something or it's something else. And we've proven this to ourselves because when we made the GANs, and even if we didn't know what it was, we've seen the formation of a rotating field. And that rotating field developed so much so that it developed a hole right in the center of the GANs. And so where did this hole come from? And is there a soul in that hole? So where did it come from? So we say, okay, when we look at principal matter, this principal matter came from PM ticks. And we've said when two forces come together, they create an interaction. And so that becomes a force field interaction. And when that force field interaction comes into a balance, we call that a maggraph. So this is the essence of creation. How does a dream fit in? Well, a dream is part of the whole process. The dream is working in the background. How far in the background? Well, that all depends on your point of view. And so we carry on. So we added more terminology and we said, okay, transmission is actually a rotating field. And so with respect to our common understanding of what a dimension is, let's call that the x-axis. Transition deals with polarity. So let's call that the y-axis. So the rotation goes around the y-axis. And how big is this field? Well, that depends on the field strength. So we call this the z-axis, the transmutation of the combination that we see as rotation and polarity. And that determines our position. But determines our position to what? To another plasma. All plasmas interact. And this is the nature of the dynamism. So we have a dynamic plasma within us. And then we have a dynamic plasma interacting with other plasmas. And all of this is energy in motion. So we find that in our physicality on this earth, we have different ranges and we can transcend these ranges. We find that in our emotional strength, we can also go through ranges. In our souls, we can also go through different ranges. But we can also go through different dimensions. And as we said, we can go through various geometries within each dimension or go from dimension to dimension. And it is this fact that allows us to understand the problem with our understanding of what evolution is if we were to believe Darwin, because he said that we evolved from monkeys. Then the question is, well, who did monkeys evolve from? So obviously they evolved from Darwin. So he's the original monkey man. And we had adapted to this earth, so we are humans. But the thing is, we also have to take into account the rate of change, because we know that on this planet, we have different domains. You know, we have cold zones, hot zones, desert, tropical, and we can move in all of these zones. But wherever we are, we have manifest And that has to do with the field strength. Our field strength interacting with the Earth's field strength. And that is what we call inertia. And so that is the evolution. The inertia is the evolution. But the evolution from what? So when we look at old science has already said, well, it's not possible to regrow limbs. It's not possible to change your skin color. I mean, heaven help you if you're a racist by skin color, and then you change skin color. It's not possible to change one's nature. Maybe if you change skin color, I don't know. But plasma science, you know what? It's not possible for you. So let's restate and add this and understand that with the plasma science, we are now talking about different kinds of transmutation. So there's a transformation, and that transformation allows us to transcend. And it also allows us to go through what we call a transmogrification, which is a modification of a physicality. Well, old science has said that that's not possible, but the new science is, it is possible. And why? Well, we have to add one more piece of terminology. Plasma dilution. So plasma dilution is what gives us the uniqueness. First of all, we have over 7 billion people on this planet, and each one is unique. Second of all, each of us has over 70 trillion cells in our body, and each cell is unique. Furthermore, we are not alone in this universe. Forget the universe. Let's just look at Earth. We have the vertical people. Each of the vertical people is unique. You all know the difference between an orange and a potato. And all the cells in an orange are unique, as are all the cells in the potato. They're also unique. And then we have physical manifestation of many, many things. And each of those is unique. So when you start to add up all these numbers, you need a pretty big calculator. But you don't need to do this, okay? We don't need to be hesitant anymore about crossing the bridge, you see, because we can know by connection. And so what we have known in the past is what we call the post-amino acid state. And what we are learning is the aminogen state. And we make a connection. And that connection is between the PM ticks, which is the energy in motion that is ubiquitous in the universe. And then we look at the field strength that is developed physically in the X, Y, and Z axis on this planet. And so we've been taught that this planet, through its gravity, is what holds us here. So in many ways, that's correct. So the planet is gravitational. And the energy that is coming through the universe is magnetical. So somehow, some way, that magnetical energy is transitioned into a gravitational manifestation. And so that takes care of the Earth, but what about us? Okay, so there has to be a manifestation of us. So if we are attracted to this Earth, does that make us magnetical? To a certain point, yes. So by changing the point of view, when we look at the range transmutation, as we see it on this planet, it is from our point of view. And our point of view is gravitational. So now we understand that our point of view is from a dynamic plasma state of us. And that is the principal matter. And so by definition, we found that the antimatter is the product of plasma dilution. And so this is the manifestation of your plasmagen state. And there's a connection through the transition matter. And that connection is what we call transformation. And that transformation depends on your environment. So if we were to transform in our dream state, then we don't necessarily have to transform into a physicality. But if we wanted to transform into our physicality, then that is inertia. And so that is why we have transformed into our mattergen state. And we see that the mattergen state has an affinity to the GAN state. And we will be talking about that more in a few weeks. But our physical state is manifest with our matter state, the lowest energy transfer state, which involves heat and electricity. And then from there, it's promoted to nuclear physics. And then from there, we are talking about plasma physics. So when you look at what is it that we're talking about today, and what are we all excited about, and what is all the hype about, it is about our investment in our past. And we need to stop doing that and start to invest in our future. We need to stop robbing ourselves, because it is, in fact, creating limitations for our soul. And so we're stuck in our little yellow submarine, and we're trying to elevate ourselves, but we don't have trust. What we need to understand is that this trust is what brought us here in the first place, because it's through the trust of the inertia, which is the interaction of the plasma field of the sun, in the earth, and our soul of the man, that has brought us here. And because of the uniqueness of each of us, we are the independent variables. And this independent variable is independent. That's the key. And it's independent because it comes from a source, which also is independent. But there's a different quality to each one. That difference in quality is what makes it independent. And the independence is what brings us the uniqueness, the biodiversity on this planet. And this is why we are in heaven. So when we make the dance of connection and we see how peaceful it is in the universe, and the rules of the universe are the same as the rules on this planet, then we have to wonder, why are we having so much trouble? So it all boils down to our understanding of atomic science. And we see that this is representative of the chains of man. And with the plasma science, we've gotten into the monatomic state, which allows a connection, a flexible connection, and a plasmatic connection, which is representative of us, because you are an unchained man. That is the universal soul system. You have a soul of the man system, and you have a soul of the body system, and you have a connection, which is springy. And when you go to sleep at night, that is your silver cord connection, which is extended. And when you wake up in the morning, it is recoiled and brought back in. So the soul of the body comes back into the body. This is the art of dreaming. So from here on, everybody likes to follow a leader, right? And so I'm conducting this class. So as a teacher, I'm the leader. But frankly, I'm a student, and I'm going into uncharted waters. So hopefully I can guide you without any problems. Can we sort this out? Let's see. Make sure you have a solid foundation. Plasma science is the magnetical energy that is transferred through attraction and repulsion. We create fields. And from those fields, we can either create more fields or we can decay into other fields. This is strictly terminology. What we're saying is that when we have a field strength that's in balance, which we call a maggrav, we can add to that field, which is magnetical, or we can add to that field, which is gravitational. So the implication of creation and decay is not so much where you are creating and destroying. It's a matter of which direction are you creating, which direction are you manifesting, because you see, it's a two-way street. So from your maggrav condition, you create what you want to create. That is a mission. From your maggrav state, you want to create what you want to create, and that is what you absorb. So when we look at ray creation, and we see that the neutron splits up into an electron-proton combination, and the byproduct is the PM tick, which is the ray. And we see that in the plasma science, we have two hemispheres. Why? Because from the maggrav, you can create in one direction. And so one direction is the natural creation, and the other direction is the natural decay. But you can do that the same thing in the other hemisphere. So any kind of ray motion is a creation. And the two work together. So the magnetical component has a creation side and a decay side. The gravitational component has a creation side and a decay side. You just have to know where you are. So why we're bringing these subjects up for the last 11 weeks is because we have to understand that we are the maggrav. And whether we converge or diverge In other words, whether we attract or repel is our point of view and is added to our Maggrav condition. From our Maggrav condition, we can be magnetical or we can be gravitational. And because of our independence, because of our uniqueness, we are bringing heaven on earth. But what we are is part of the universe. So we are independent, interdependent with the universe. So within the interdependence of the universe, we are independent. And now, more than ever, after 23 months, the cups of life are more important. What are the cups of life? They are not the cups of pandemic. They are the cups of life representative of the plasma functioning. And so with the plasma functioning, as we are so physically bound, we take physical components, and in the one cup, we create a magnetical and a gravitational field. We created a second cup, we change the components, but we still create a magnetical gravitational field. When we compare these two cups, we find based on field strength, one is emotional and one is physical. If we're still dealing with the pandemic, then keep these cups apart by at least 1 meter and use them accordingly. And if you want to enhance our environment, put them together in the cups of man. And together, they collectively create a magnetical giver and a gravitational taker field. And then we have the cup of soul, which also has a magnetical gravitational field. But each cup has a soul. And collectively, when we put the emotion, cup number 1 and cup number 2 and the cup of soul together, we have a magnetical gravitational field with a soul. That's us. And us is interacting with something. And that interaction is represented in the cup of inertia. And so we have a magnetical gravitational field. That cup of inertia is interacting with our environment. What is our environment? Well, we all know that we're on Earth right now. Unless we have some spies from Mars or Jupiter, I don't know. But that cup has a magnetical gravitational field. So that's the cup of the Earth. And so as an archaeologist, when you're looking at different cups and you say, well, what's the difference between an ordinary teacup and a Kesh Foundation ceramic cup of sweet, of pressure, or of life? Well, let's just look at the cup of sweet. But we're going to look at it from the eyes of a teacup. Do you like to have some tea or coffee? Would you like that with or without sugar? And if you did want it with sugar and you put the sugar in the tea or coffee, would you see the sugar or would the sugar dilute inside? So it's still a cup of tea. It's still a cup of coffee, but is it with or without sugar in? And you can't tell until you drink it. And this is the same with the ceramic cups of sweet, of pressure, and of life. And so as a physical archaeologist who is unearthing form artifacts, you don't know if that is advanced science or the other science. You don't know, because you cannot tell from the physical aspect of it. And this is why we have to cross the bridge. We are now crossing the bridge to the other side. And we can do this not by knowing the details, but by the details of knowing. In other words, when you gap that bridge, then you can put a bridge across that gap. And you know that the knowing is of a higher order of magnitude, right? So when we look at the various domains and we say, well, we have a awake state and we have a sleep state. So the awake state is part of our earth domain. And we say, okay, well, the earth domain is our earth space. So the sleep state is our space domain. And so the awake state becomes our consciousness state, and the sleep state is our unconscious state. But when we look at the space domain, now we see that there is a difference between the inner space and the outer space. And this is important to understand, because the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute is teaching the knowledge to go from Earth space to outer space. That is the advanced technology. That is how our soul travels. We are all soul travelers. And we travel and are connected through the carbogen to our tiny little perfect universe. And you can see how tiny perfect it is. Well, you can see how tiny it is. And you can see how vast the universe is. So we talk about sequencing. So our soul sequencing is the sun plus the soul of the sun plus the soul of the earth is what attracts the soul of the man. So we are the soul of the man. You could say that the soul of the man is magnetically drawn, because the soul of the man is a traveler. But we're saying that the soul of the man is attracted. The soul of the man is gravitationally drawn. So likewise, we can say the soul of the body is gravitationally drawn from the interaction of the soul of the earth plus the soul of the man. You are the soul of the man. And so you have a soul of the body. That soul of the body is you. So this body manifests itself physically. It is attracted through the combination of the plasma field of the soul of the earth plus the soul of the body. So there's a sequence of how these souls interact. And this is what we're trying to teach in the plasma science. So we'll say there's fundamentally a magnetical gravitational balance, which we call a maggraph. And there's a scientific community that only understands the conservation of magnetic fields. And the conservation of magnetic fields is interpreted as the conservation of energy. And then spiritually speaking, we can't talk in scientific terms, so we talk in terms of spirituality. We find that the spirit is the motor of the soul. And this is how the plasma science adds to the knowledge. We bring both together. So we have a small m matter state, which is physical, and we have a matter gen state, which is plasmatic. And you need to know in which state you're dominant, because you're in both states simultaneously. And the reason for that is because there is a common denominator, and you are it. So we introduced the vertical enhancement unit, and it has a special characteristic. So one of the things we understand about science, as written by Herman Weyl, a definite portion of matter occupies a definite part of space at a definite moment in time. So you can't be at two places at the same time. So therefore, there has to be flow and there has to be a connection. This is known science. Nothing exotic about this. It is known science. What is exotic is the ability to cross this bridge using the vertical enhancement unit. However, you cannot do that in physicality. You have to elevate into the soul of the body, and then you have to elevate into the soul of the man. And then to cross that bridge has to be a peace bridge. You cannot cross that bridge as a warmonger. Because when we talk about heaven, we are concerned, well, is it a space heaven or an earth heaven? So by the same question, we could say, is it an earth hell or a space hell? So it has to do with how we transmit energy. And this differentiation between heaven and hell is strictly a transmission on this earth. This transmission is done through our plasma condition, our dynamic plasma condition. So in order to bring about this heaven transcendence, we literally have to elevate to a higher energy strength. So the soul of the man has a higher energy strength than the soul of the body. And we know the soul of the body that controls the physical body is also stronger. So this is how we transcend into our heaven. And our heaven is peaceful. Heaven is peaceful. And that's what we're missing. We're missing the peacefulness on this planet. And so if we want to cross this bridge, we have to cross the peace bridge, because it is from there that we can transform into, from the soul of the man, the soul of the body. and go through a transmogrification, which is into the physical body of transportation. And this is how we can cross the bridge from one side to the other. So what that means is that when we look at the individual cups of the soul, and we add the cup of inertia and the cup of the earth, those 5 cups together create a collective soul with a magnetical gravitational field strength and a soul. So as this collective soul is working, then we all have a uniqueness. So where does that come from? Well, that comes from the dilution of the various plasma charges. And it's not one charge. You are not a dilution of one charge. It doesn't mean it's the same. And it doesn't mean it's different. It just means that you have a variety. You are a composite. So the energy pack of our existence is actually a dilution of composite plasma charges. And they go through various gradients. And before we manifest into physicality, we assemble as an amino jet. And because of these composite plasma charges, that is the essence of the spice of life on this planet. And so our spirit becomes the indomitable spirit of our dream energy. And our dream energy is the product of our soul pack, our soul energy pack. So when we're looking at Gantz, Gantz is the manifestation of a condition on this planet where we are bringing things, not elements, but composites. So what does that mean? That means we can produce in the cups of life, we can produce CO2 Gantz, ZNO2 Gantz, CuO Gantz. But the Gantz today is not the Gantz you produce tomorrow. And the Gantz that you produce tomorrow is not the same Gantz that you produced last year. So you could take, for instance, the CO2 Gantz that you produced last year, the CO2 Gantz that you produced yesterday, the CO2 Gantz you produced today, and the CO2 Gantz that you produce tomorrow, and you can blend them all together. And what you get is a hybrid environment, which you can interact with. So you as a composite being can interact with a hybrid environment. If you can interact with a hybrid environment on this planet, then you can interact with an interplanetary environment. So when we look at the individual cups in the stacker system, we find that each one has its own uniqueness and its own combination with another uniqueness. But it's a stacker unit. Each of these is individually and brought together as a team. That's the stacker 5-cup system. a vertical system. What happens when we get into the cup of universe, where we find the blend of all of these components? And then we say, well, what is the manifestation of these components? And what is it dependent on? It is dependent on an independent variable. So we can take a physical inventory, and we've done this. We can look at the physical connections, and we've done this. We can look at the chemical inventory, and we've done this. And then we can look at the environmental chemical inventory, and we've done this. What we need to look at is the plasmatic inventory. The plasmatic inventory is the energy pack of the universe, which we call a PM tick. The PM ticks come in different flavors. They come in different energy strengths. They come from all different locations. And as they come together, they don't come together in a primordial swill. They come together in a plasma soup. A plasma soup, which is a combination of all the ingredients. And the first connection is the principal matter. We know the principal matter is the antimatter. And from there, there's a transition matter. We know the transition matter as the dark matter. And then we come to the matter gen, which we know is the plasma matter, different from the physical matter. And all of this is a form, artifact, manifestation. All of this is in plasma state. All of this is a form, artifact, manifestation in plasma state. So now we have to define manifestation all over again. So it's not just with relationship to the stacker unit, but it's also within relation to the cup of the universe. So when two fields come together to form another, that, whatever field it is, that formation is a manifestation. And the plasma feeding, wherever it comes from, to wherever it's going, that plasma feeding leads to a manifestation. And so that manifestation can be non-tangible or tangible, non-visible or visible, plasmatic or physical. It can be dark matter or light matter. And it can also be a plasmatic reality or a physical reality or both. Whatever manifestation is, it is a form artifact, including the emotion of presence. The emotion of presence is a form artifact, and all form artifacts are an artifact of energy in motion. That is what manifestation is. So, we have a musical dilution kit. Can we understand that? We have individual notes, we have individual players. One side is magnetical, one side is gravitational. Where's the music? That is the musical plasma. That is the uniqueness. So it all looks the same, but it's not the same. And so what we have to understand is, are we on the leeward side Or are we on the windward side? We are at a watershed point. And I've been trying to say, well, what is this watershed point? And that is that some things physics and chemistry cannot explain, but there are missing ingredients. And when we have these missing ingredients, they make us out of range. It's like being out of sight. But if you're out of sight, are you out of mind? And if you don't recognize this, are you out of your mind? Because this is the reality. So our reality, the way we see it, is in the post-amino acid state. It is from the formation of the amino acids, which is on the surface of the cups of life. From there, we form the DNA, and then the fatty acids, and then the protein, and then the cells, and then more complex cells. But we are at a watershed. And so the obsolete science, and it's not to forget it, but it's to build on it. We are on the opposite side, the aminogen state that is connected through the carbogen state. And so we see that there is a problem with the man-made reality. It's not the man that's the problem. It's the man-made reality that's the problem, because the man is part of the universe. So when you're looking for clues as to find out what is limiting the possibilities on this planet, then you, as a good detective, have to know that why is not the question. Why is the answer? And the answer is that we are limiting our possibilities, and we don't see what is limiting. And so that lack of evidence now is also evidence, because what we do know is that we've seen the evidence inside the cups of life. We've seen the GANs created from what? Nothing. We've seen the amino acid created from nothing. We've seen the energy in the cups of life from nothing. What's going on in the cup of the universe, and what is different? Well, what is different is that fundamentally our soul sits in the center, the same way it does within our brain. And so we see that there's a similarity between the structure of the cup of the universe and the cup of life, except that it's more complex. And so we have one cup of life, which is physical. We have one rotating sphere, Earth, which is physical. But we have two hemispheres of the brain, and we have two rotating hemispheres of the Earth. And there's a connection. There's another connection of eddy currents in between. And it is these eddy currents which allow us and cause the crossover in the plasma interaction. What are we talking about? Well, when we look at the dark mass and we find that each mass exists in the light, in the emotion, in our mind, in our spirit, and in our soul. And we see that GANS has a special affinity. And so it is through the GANS that we can do this transcendence between what? Well, ascending into a higher energy strength or descending into a lower energy strength. And so our awake state is our lower energy state, and our higher energy state is our dream state. And our dream state is interacting with the aminogen, And in our awake state, we're interacting with our post-amino acid state. So between here and there are transitory field strengths. This is transcendence of the dark mass into the light mass. And this transcendence can stay within the range. The range on this planet where we have transition, polar motion, transmission, motion from one side to the other. We can have transmission, dimensional transition and transmission. We can transit from dimension to dimension in terms of dimensional strength, or we can transmit from dimension to dimension in the same strength. And then we can also do transmutation, domain transmutation in between one state and another state within the range or within the dimension. We have this capability because that is the essence of plasma interaction. And it is the crossover in the infinity loop, which is the point of reference. It is from that point of reference where you have a magnetical or gravitational pushing or pulling. And it is the balance at that point of interaction, which is the Magravs condition. And depending on which way the energy is flowing is the residue. And there always has to be a residue, because if there is no residue, there is no motion. So now when we look at the new atomic math and we understand it better, when we look at the periodic table of elements, and they are based on the neutron mass, which equals the proton mass and the electron mass, it doesn't add up because it's missing the mass of the PM ticks plus the total mass of the matter gen and the dark matter and the antimatter. And the antimatter is the product of the plasma dilution. So the totality is achieved through the energy level balance and positioning of all of these things coming together. So we see that not only can we dream, but we can regenerate, because the regeneration and the growth does not come from the physical side. It comes from the plasma side. Because the regeneration or the plasma dilution is the same thing. And the Keshe Foundation is prepared to donate 12 of these vision enhancement units for the free use of members of the US military to recover from PTSD. That recovery will be done through the plasmagen interaction. And it is not just a soul enhancer. And it's not just a spirit enhancer. It is both. And this is our gift. And who are we? Well, we all want to get back to nature. So we are nature. But more importantly, And now more than ever, because of this existential crisis that we're going through the United States of emergency, we really want to get back to normal. But in order to get back to normal, we really have to understand what normal is. So what is normal? So we can define normal as saying normal has to do with the majority. If the majority of people have 2 arms and you have 4 arms, then the normal is 2-armed people, and you as a 4-armed being would be the freak. So the majority is normal, and the majority on this planet seek freedom and emancipation. That's this planet. But when we look at the universe is already normal. But the universe has a problem, you see, because the earth is also seeking freedom and emancipation. So beyond the dream state into our soul state, this is the normal state. And it's a carbon connection to our nuclear creation. And this is only done through peace. And so now when someone asks you, well, can you please define plasma? And say plasma is a kind of energy state. And it is transcending the limitations of science. And it is extremely important. So you see, when you put your point of view in context, and you find that the dilution is at the head of the list, the dilution is your dynamic plasma state and how it manifests into your matter state on this planet, your physical matter state on this physical planet. And you have all the states in between. And all is determined by is your point of view. But understand the rules, and the rules are simple. The higher strength feeds the weaker strength. And so when you look at the PM tick matter gen, and inside the PM tick, where is the soul manifestation dimension? Inside the PM tick, you have antimatter, dark matter, and matter. And now if you understand that the plasma dilution affects the antimatter, which of these 3 is the strongest field strength, and the strongest field strength feeds the weaker field strength. Now you know the direction of flow. So when we're talking about plasma dilution, the stronger is the gravitational and the giver is the magnetical. And so when you're looking at the stacker unit, the higher cup feeds the lower cup. And so the lower cup also has a relationship, gravitational to magnetical. But the in-between is both. So you have a principal matter, which comes from the plasma dilution. You have a transition point, and you have a convergence point. Within this transition point is the crossover. However, it's a two-way street. So you look at your physicality, and now this provides a feedback. And this feedback is on a plasmatic basis. So you, as the gravitational, are emitting a magnetical force field, right? And so we have a soul of the body and we have a soul of the man, and together they are emitting a force field. And so this gravitational form that you have in your body, which is the form artifact of convergence, goes through a transition stage, feeding back to the principal matter. And there is a crossover. There is a crossover between the universal cup and the stacker unit. So the stacker unit is really a feedback mechanism. It's a feedback stacker. And so when you look at the individual cups, each cup has a gravitational component and a magnetical component. And when they come together, they interact. And so each one is representative of an individual field. And then collectively, they have a collective field. So you see that the vertical people are structured this way. And we as horizontal people are able to sleep and in a horizontal position. And both of us react to our matter-gen state. So the feedback is of our environment and the environment's condition. The plasma feeding comes as a result of the interaction of the environment. And so the plasma feeding interacts with our environment, and it comes from the plasma dilution. And so when we look at the creation of principal matter, and as we continue to add, what is the position that we're concerned with? Well, right after the PM ticks, which are the energy packs traveling through the universe, each of them has a different flavor, and they come together into a force field. And the first interaction is with the principal matter, the antimatter. And then there's a transition to coming into the plasmagen convergence, the convergence into the mattergen. So there has to be a plasmagen conversion first. And then that is your maggrav condition. That is the gravitational condition with what it wants to interact. So that's one field to interact with another field, and that interaction is inertia. So now we have a much more clear picture, I hope. It just all depends on your point of view. So we could be saying that if it's man-made, it's not made by angels, but maybe the role of man is to be an angel, to help with the heaven on earth, because that's where heaven is. And so it's not the role of man that is the problem. It's the man-made construct of the role of man. The role of man is a universal construct. And so when we look at the energy binding systems of self-serving natures, which are sucking energy at the expense of others through various means, these are abuse. And so morality is the missing ingredient. And that's what we talk about next week. Because the cross you double cross is your eternal burden. A delay in consequences does not mean that there are no consequences. This is the way energy is transferred in the universe. It depends on ethics, and the ethics constitutes morality, compassion, and courage. These are the foundations of creation, and they work together. And this is how, when we've looked at misunderstanding how energy is manifest. We have to see that the universe knows better than we do. So we have to define what the universe ethos is. Ethos constitutes ethical behavior. So ethical behavior abides by universal laws. So unethical behavior then therefore violates universal laws, right? And so we find that any kind of genetic mutilation is in an unethical post-amino acid state, whereas the universal community is in a pre-amino acid state. We call this pre-amino acid state the aminogen, and that is our common denominator. The ethical knowing is the common denominator. So we don't know everything, but we do need to know by connection. So we know about our existence, but our existence is transitioned into a physicality, and maybe that is all we know. We have to know that there's more. We have to know that we can connect to the rest of the universe. And the way to do that is to know by connection. So when you look at the universal cup, it has to do with the interaction between the dynamic transfer state and the physical destination state. And it's done on a soul level, on a plasmatic level, and it's done with two hemispheres. And it's connected to the universe through plasma dilution. And so our skill in understanding this, we have to understand it physically, we have to understand it plasmatically. But when we talk about elevating the souls, that has to be done plasmatically. You cannot elevate a soul physically. The soul is connected to the universal cup, not the physical cup. So beyond the dream state is the plasma dilution. And that creates the aminogen state, which is connected by the carbogen state into our post-amino acid state. So we have a dream-made world and a man-made world. And this information can be transmitted right around the world, but not only because we are seeking creature comforts. Yes, we are. We have ideas and we have wishes, and we need the courage to fulfill these wishes. And the best way to do that is with love. And so when we look at the universal body enhancement units and the universal material enhancement units, then we have to understand that we are not just in the dream state, we are beyond the dream state. And to travel beyond that, this is our beyond dream ship. And so in spirituality, we all talk about the greater oneness, and we just really don't know what that means. And in that context, I'm speaking about myself, but the picture is becoming very, very clear, because we know what goes around comes around. Yes, it does. So when we look at the Universal Council, it doesn't matter if we're on Earth, and it doesn't matter if we're in outer space, because all beings are listening. The common denominator is the ethical knowing of universal peace, and we are the independent variable. So the Kesh Foundation Spaceship Institute is putting forward this plasma science into public domain. and is asking all the world leaders to sign the World Peace Treaty. All the world leaders to sign the peace treaty on behalf of themselves personally and on behalf of their mandate professionally as leaders of their country. World peace should be their goal, because the physical and emotional harmony and vitality of their people is at stake. And every country has patriots, and every country has truth seekers. The question is, can these truth seekers become patriotic difference makers? You see, because this is the universal language of knowing. It is held by universal Earth patriots, and the plasma science needs to be delivered in exchange for peace on Earth. And I want to say, well, welcome to the new space age, but the peace process has a pink elephant in the room. This is the end of this lesson, but it is not the end of the lesson. Thank you all for allowing me to make this presentation, and I wish all the members of the upcoming peace conference to have their souls elevated and understand what it means to be a universal functionary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. Of many points you've raised and many ideas you've put on the table for us to take from. And of course, we all know we take from this knowledge what we can or what our intellect allows. And no soul has a corner on knowledge. So while we let Alex rest his voice for a minute or two, or perhaps warm his coffee, it's probably cooler by now. I just, again, we do have more people here than were here an hour or so ago. If there's anyone here for the first time, if you feel like you would like to open your mic, tell us who you are, where you're from, and perhaps how you found this meeting. I do see some new names in the participants list, and it's just a brief introduction. If you'd like, we leave it up to you.
I'm Antonio Polina from Australia, and been following this for 10, 15 years now, on and off. And so, yeah, my interest always lies in new technology, and I'm an organic farmer, so I'm using some of the GAN's plasma in my farming practice, which seems to be beneficial, although the weather is against us. We've had a huge hailstorm a month ago that did a little bit of damage. Not too bad where I am, but nearby growers have lost nearly everything. I missed the first part of this meeting, so it's a bit hard to ask the question about what was being taught, but so thank you very much.
Are you near Lisa and Jim? Lisa had mentioned something about a very heavy hail in her area that was damaging things. You must have networked with some of the other knowledge seekers in Australia.
Yeah, I talk to Jim often since I've become aware of him, and I'm always full of questions. You know, there's so many things that are going on.
And you're still producing? What are you producing down there, if I could ask, Antonio?
Stone fruit, plums, nectarines, peaches. If you buy an organic wine from Yalumba, the Shiraz is 40% comes from my vineyard. So plasmatic wine, I could call that.
Wow.
And also veggies. I'm doing tomatoes, pumpkins, and watermelons at the moment. but my body's not up to it anymore, so I'm going to take it easy. But yeah, thanks. Thank you.
That's very nice. Are you getting the same feedback that Jim and Lisa are getting with your production of your crops and things? They seem to, they were telling us, at least last year, how much the restaurants always look forward to their product, and their customers as well have been asking for their products.
Yeah, well, I do get some feedback. The watermelons, the wholesaler, who buys it from me, the Biodynamic Marketing in Melbourne, he said to me, I've been in the business, 17 years, and your watermelons are the best I've ever tasted.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's beautiful. Isn't that elevating?
It is. Yeah,
and we elevate all the souls in Australia.
It's a difficult time, of course, here. Mandates for this. I can't move because I haven't been vaxxed, of course. I can't go here. I can't do this. I can't do that. And it feels like a prison at the moment. Hopefully this will sort itself out soon.
Well, we did bring up at the beginning of the importance of elevating or enlightening the souls of these negotiators. So you can play a part in that, Antonio, as much as you'd like.
I do whatever I can and tell as many people as I can, but it seems to fall on a lot of deaf ears because seeing is believing. They said, when you get the virus, let us know how the plasma works. Okay, I don't want to get it, but if it comes my way, well, yes, I certainly will be using the 7th protocol.
Well, thank you. I guess you're one of the 300 million or so who are around, but they don't always appear. So Mr. Kesh is often referred to 200 or 300 million knowledge seekers on this planet.
Well, I think that not everyone essentially may follow the plasma technology, but they are elevated souls, possibly, is what he's referring to, is that people that are ready for the change. I think there's more people than that who are ready for
Sorry about that. We had 2 people open their mics simultaneously.
That's okay. No worries. Yeah, so my intuition says that we are ready for the change, and it's just the window of opportunity when it happens. It'll happen when it's ready to happen, I think.
Yes, and apparently Mr. Kesha said that it's time for man to go through this process, and this is part of it. He said the soul of this planet was getting ready to join the universal community anyway, and this, what we're all going through, is part of this perhaps awakening or getting our attention or seeing the efficient or effective use of the technology. Just in a small way, but obviously we know how much it's going to be growing in the next weeks and months, let's say. So thank you for your presence.
Thank you.
Can I make a question to Alex?
Of course. Is there anyone else, Daniela, we'd like to just ask them to open their mic?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead then, please.
I want to ask Alex or anyone, there's specific emotions with Mr. Kesh teachings. If you can tune into this, you can access the love. Have you guys have any experience about this, or Alex can tell me something about this?
You mean this emotion of completeness or other emotions? Or maybe like, emotions we haven't even discovered yet.
It's like Mr. Kesh embedded the love within the knowledge and the words and the teaching. And we don't realize because we block this, we filter this, you know. But you can tune into this and feel the love, the unconditional love from the Creator and from the totality. I think maybe Alex can enlighten me something about this, or you guys.
Hi, Danilo.
Hello.
This is a terrific question. You see, the thing is, when you're looking at the PM ticks, the rays of the universe, they all come in different flavors. So to have a flavor, it's generally speaking not an individual flavor, but a blend. So let's say, for instance, you want to play music, and so I'm using a piano. It has 88 keys, but there are pianos with less keys. But a guitar only has 6 strings.
Sorry, Alex. Somehow I was disconnected.
Yes, I was just gonna say that.
I
Alex,
just
could you?
heard that it's a terrific question, and then
Oh, okay. I'll start over again.
He got bumped out for some reason, Alex, just as soon as you started to answer his question.
I see. So I was talking about music. And the reason for that is because I was using a reference to the keys on a piano. It has 88 keys. But there are keyboards that have less keys. And then if you look at a guitar, for instance, say a guitar has 6 strings. So you can make music on a guitar with 6 strings. You can make music on a piano with 88 keys. So it's not really how many keys you have, because there are 7 billion of us on this planet, and each of us has 70 trillion cells. So each of us is unique, and then within us, each cell is unique. So you cannot possibly have the kind of universal music to come from a ray that carries this phenomenal number of variations. So when the PM ticks come together, when two PM ticks come together to create a field, they are carrying their individual flavor, which is a composite. It's not an individual, say, I'm just going to bring vanilla and I'm going to bring banana flavor or something like that. It's a combination, it's a composite. And so you have a composite ray coming together with another composite ray. But not only two, we're just saying two come together, they are the beginning. But there could be many coming. So in other words, you could have 1,000 different rays coming together, and each of those thousands of rays are a composite. So each one of those 1,000 rays would be unique, but the collective, as they come together, create a force field. So therefore, this force field becomes unique. And one of the points that I made was that the CO2 GANs you created yesterday and the CO2 GANs that you create tomorrow is not the same GANs in field strength. And the reason for that is because it takes into account the environment. So our planet rotates, and we are on this planet, and we don't get dizzy. And that's a good thing, because we're in the physicality. But plasmatically, these fields are rotating. And the entire field of the Earth is moving through space. And that space is outer space. So as it moves through the field of outer space, it is encountering other PM ticks. And so it is contributing to the flavor. So this is energy in motion. right? So the love component is part of each and every ray, because each and every ray comes from the Creator. But because of the diversity, each and every ray has its own flavor, of which love is one of those components. But there are other components that come in different field strengths. So this is why you have to understand that when we talk about the neutron and compare neutrons, they're not the same. When we talk about the elements, we already know they're not the same because we have a whole table of elements. But they're composed of neutrons, protons, and electrons, but they're not the same. So we are not the same. In fact, you are not the same person that you were yesterday. If you were, that would be a tragedy, because that would mean that you didn't learn anything. And you cannot go through life and not learn. Impossible. Because life is for learning. And so you learn what works and what doesn't work. And if you continue to work with what doesn't work, well, you're ignorant. But if you learn from your mistakes, then you are better than what you were. But the foundational component is love. Additional components are courage, compassion. And all of these things have to do with creation. And so the Creator only understands creation. And in order to create, there has to be a respect. There has to be a morality. There has to be an ethos. Okay, because you can't create some and not create others. And this is what, people need to understand. If you have prisoners, right, then you have jailers. Well, who's in jail? The prisoner or the jailer? Well, to be a prison guard, you have to be in the prison. To be a prisoner, you have to be in the prisoner. So what's the difference? Oh, well, the difference is that one's a prisoner and one has a job. So is that the job? Is that our job? So when we look at that situation, we find that our scheme is too small. And the reason our scheme is so small is because it has to fit inside our tiny, perfect planet. And we find that our tiny, perfect planet is definitely tiny, but it's not normal. We want normal, but we don't know what it means. The universal community knows what it means. That's why we're under quarantine. Not from us, but from the universal community, because the universal community is not interested in engaging with hooligans, and we are hooligans because our conduct is not sincere. Our conduct is insincere. And sincerity is not something that you can fake. It's the very definition of sincerity is to be sincere. So that's why you can't play poker in the universe, because the universe doesn't care what you say. The universe only cares about your intention, because your intention is at a higher field strength. And higher than that is love. And so if you don't have any love in your heart, they can see this. So you only guide yourself by what you can see. You have to know that all of us guide ourselves by that component within our composite structure, which is love, that comes from the Creator. But the uniqueness, the diversity, the abundance that we call heaven is right here on earth. That's why we're here. So the depressing thing is that the majority is normal, and that's what we want. We want peace. And the universe is normal, and the universe wants peace. So if we want to break the quarantine between the earth and the universal community, we have to cross the bridge of peace. And if we want to break the quarantine that we have imposed on ourselves here, we have to cross the bridge of peace, because the universe is first. It's benevolent, it's abundant, it feeds the lower energy with love. I hope I've answered your question. It was a great question.
Can I say something?
Of course.
Yeah. From my experience, I can say like this way. If you see something closer, very closer, but you have to see like a third person not involving in it, then you will see the beauty. When you see the beauty, you will feel love after that. So I can give an example. Like in your window, 2 ants is walking. So if you are busy, you can see their beauty. So if you take time and watch like a third person nearby it, so you will see a lot of stuff they are doing, how they work, how they talk, their language, their style. You will see there is a beauty. And when you see beauty, then suddenly you will feel love with them. And that way, everything same. Just take a time and close watch. And you will see their beauty and you will feel love. And that love is everything. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Hello, it's Salomea here. I'd like also to have a proposal and a question. A question is regarding dilution. If we can define the dilution. And my proposal is to make a dictionary with all terms together. If we can do, my Romanian community asked me to help them with such a dictionary. But I think that maybe you already have something, and you did from so many years. Maybe you have, and I do not have to rewrite myself. I know that Dr. Gatwa did something before. And another proposal is for tomorrow, when negotiation will start. If we can do together to be connected during this day, because Mr. Cash need our support at the soul level, and even if we can travel there at the meeting at the soul level, to try to elevate and to achieve, to elevate our target, to elevate the soul of all team involved on this negotiation tomorrow. It's very necessary. So I have these 2 questions and 2 proposals. Thank you.
Yes, I think a dictionary might help a little bit. We are introducing a new science, a new ethos, and a new language to the community. So yes, many of us do get mixed up, and some of the terms seems to be beyond our understanding, and many people interpret them differently. But yes, there are some standards in the book and so on. A couple of the books, I think you'll near the end of them, I'm not sure which one, if it's 1, 2, or 3, but there's a list of different terms and so on. So yes, I think a type of dictionary would be very nice in a way, at least a quick referral, so to speak, because it is a new language.
Thank you. In the second book, we have this dictionary, but there are not all terms. And we need to maybe to ask Dr. Gatwa to help us. I don't have any connection with him. Maybe in a Universal Council when he will come, I don't know.
And yes, we know Dr. Gatwa has a PhD, but Mr. Kesh said all of our souls has a PhD in this knowledge, actually a double PhD in this knowledge. We just have to reach the soul or embrace it with our physicality and so on to perhaps learn more about it from the soul directly. But I think a little dictionary or a handbook would be very nice to refer to terms.
Yeah, if I'll share with all community, but maybe we can do it together because we have to make a common code of communication. If everybody understands something else, we'll not communicate in a proper way, and sometimes we can argue. It's
Right.
better to have a common denominator, this dictionary.
And we may not all agree all the time because we're all growing into this knowledge at different speeds and different strengths. And nobody is wrong. This is one of the beauties of this knowledge.
Yes, this is nice.
Hello,
yes.
here's Andreas. Can I say something to the
Yes.
dictionary? We had already a dictionary, and for sure it's somewhere for the transcribers. And also I tried to add to this dictionary, but then you come to the point to define a term word, and there long travel starts because you cannot just define one term with a few sentences. Sometimes you would have to go through all teachings of Mr. Kesh that you only can define one word because it has so much, you can look at it from so many different perspectives on something. And yeah, then the time came where I ended with my dictionary. I mean, it was not mine, it was built up on the transcriber's dictionary, which was about the books. But it's really, I don't know how to say. you can only for one word you could make your own teaching series. What that word means, how it is to understand. Yeah.
It is
That's
very vast and very immense knowledge. And no
Yes.
question.
Yeah, I agree with this, to have a teaching for each concept will be enlightening.
Hello, everybody. Nice,
Hi.
beautiful knowledge.
Hello, Mernez.
Hello. I need to know what kind of words do you miss? What kind are they?
All
example.
one dictionary of the science of
Okay.
terminology, everything, like inertia, like dilution. When I asked today what is a definition of dilution, and not me, it's a Romanian community to which ask this, and they ask me to do it because anyway, I know how to make definitions.
Yeah, you just go to
But
normal
I need your help.
Sure, anybody can help you, but
Yeah.
like dilution in plasma, maybe it's better, when you read the book and find where it talks about dilution and find it in the context.
For example, how you will define dilution, Marinez?
Yeah, dilution, I mean, and if you go to dictionary, I think it means like plasma water, like diluted, mixed, not very heavy, not very concentrated, right? Plasma dilution, probably in the book, I don't know where it is, but when you find it in the book, it probably means the plasma reduced or not very heavy or not very dense.
Excuse
Things
me,
like that.
excuse me, it's on page 154 of book number 1.
Yeah, it's written in the, you read it and you find it out in the context.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's written by a non-English writer. So he uses the normal words and then you put it in the context. And little by little you get used to it.
So what I understood from Mr. Alex's teaching now is that when we dilute plasma, we can create by transmutation to another energetic level in principal matter or antimatter. And this is also synonym with a process of regeneration, because by dilution of plasma will regenerate the body from this principal matter. By transmutation, we do this. When we travel, for example, we transmute in principal matter, so from matter in fields, or we travel at the soul level in outer space, we come back regenerated because we are in contact with this principal matter. So we'll regenerate our body. This is my understanding. May I am correct, Mr. Alex?
You are absolutely correct.
And I could
Yes.
just add, Solomea, that
Yeah.
chapter 21 in book number 1 is called Plasma Dilution Technology. And there's a few pages right there. Plasma dilution technology is the new approach for the use of new gain knowledge for the creation and control of plasma and its submatters, mass, constituents, matter mass and their fundamental elementary particles.
We study first book in Romania and we are at the second book, but we just read it, not too much studying. And I said we need to study very how Mr. Alex do here in details and to understand something. So, and I didn't understand first time what is dilution when he studied, but now I understood from Mr. Alex. Thank you very much. Lovely.
If I can add, my friend, this knowledge, first of all, it's new vocabularies, and then it's used in many, many, many different fields. From, you know, from usage at home up to space travel. You see, it's a very vast utilization of this knowledge. So you cannot, just by what we know in physical world, find a utilization of these practices. You understand? Because it can work the same way for a space travel. You understand?
Very good
Yes,
point.
yes, I understand the Marinus. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so don't worry if you don't understand it totally. It's a knowledge. He could not say it in other words, but don't forget it's very fast, very vast utilization of this knowledge for very normal habitual things, a spaceship and whatever. So don't worry if it comes gradually. It's my humble opinion.
And
Yeah.
Jefferson has put in the chat, I think Alex has just taught us in a very deep way how dilution works. Thank you, Jefferson.
That's why I am in love with Mr. Alex teaching, because here I get a lot of enlightenment and I come with pleasure, and not only from Mr. Alex, but from Mark and from Jalal and other knowledge seekers, Dean, and in Plasma Reactor from Rick, and of course from Mr. Kirsch, but I came late myself. I came when we start to study the soul. So I am sorry because I was not from the very beginning, but I start to teach. I jumped, and now I have 2 more lessons to finish plasma understanding, the first ply. Yes, and it was very good for me because when I teach, I understand better. And my Romanian community is also happy because I can make the transfer from Mr. Alex and from other knowledge seekers. All what I know, I transfer to them. Yes, please.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah.
You know, you need to understand one thing. This knowledge beyond the understanding of the man. So even if you use the words which the man understands, it is beyond it. So for the meanwhile, you take this words to progress in understanding. In the time when really you drop these words, and you need to drop it in a way, not to count in the words exactly. You need to go beyond it. Because as you say always, this knowledge is beyond the understanding of the man, or even the imagination of the man. So do you have a words for you to understand the understanding beyond the man, the understanding of the man, or beyond the imagination of the man? Is there a words for it? So as I always say, don't stuck in whatever you know, because there is more. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you,
Yes.
Jalal. Maybe we will come again in our Friday meeting because we are waiting for you. We miss you. If you have time, of course.
Yeah, you forget to invite me, my dear.
Oh, but you are welcome always because you are Romanian now.
Thank you, my dear.
Yeah.
Thank you. I will be
Much
next
love.
week.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
I see Mr. Kesh has joined us. I thought he would be there sweeping and shoveling and rutting figuratively rutting ditches, so to speak. And then I just see a note here from Randy. Randy, would you want to share with everyone what you said? It said that the meetings were called off. That's good, so we can have more time to enlighten the souls that are there, or perhaps Mr. Kesh would like to say anything about this. It says, Randy, maybe you've read the article? I see
I'll
there's
just
a
give you a
link, just in general terms.
quick synopsis.
And again, many of these articles are written just the opposite of what's going on. So let's just take it perhaps with a grain of salt.
3 grains, then we'll be fine. The World Economic Forum has announced that its public open forum, set to take place in Davos in January next year, has been canceled due to death threats. The Union of Elite Globalists, under the leadership of Klaus Schwab, has caused such a wave of anger from populations worldwide that security measures of the other WEF events have also been increased, reports Swiss outlet. And the link is in the chat if anybody wants to read the whole thing, but that's just quite a synopsis. And like you said, Mark, maybe Mr. Kesh can enlighten us a little more of maybe our talk and the meditation the other day had an effect already.
Could be, very well. I'm sure it has. And maybe he's resting a little bit from sweeping and shoveling. He's handling the physicality part on this. And as we continue to remind everyone, our job is on the soul level for us to test and practice what we've learned in the last couple of years from the soul teaching. And Salamia, Mr. Kesh said that knowledge seekers would come in that would already be past these teaching of Gans and the other things, and they'd go right into the soul level. So that is very good as well for you. Some of the new students would go right past some of the old teachings, and he even said that in the 408. We're moving past that in so many ways, but not completely, into this field interaction. I mean, we'd all like to go to Vienna and make signs and chants and other things, but that wouldn't do very much at all. We can work at a distance, as Mr. Kesh is doing, outside of these negotiations through his soul. And he's planting the seed of peace, and that's what we can also do.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much.
I think our soul has the whole complete knowledge already in itself, if we can get to it. It's perfect instrument if we get to it.
Can I answer Daniela's question?
Of course.
I will give you a tip. If you listen to Mr. Kesh, go and work while you are listening. Work with everything you have, with your feet, with your hand. Don't let the physicality pay attention to Mr. Kesh. Just listen and don't watch. Give the imagination to develop in what he's saying. And you know what? Live the moment as it is in you, not comparing for what you have. Even if you have listened to it 2, 3, 4 times, every time think that it is a new thing, and it will be. And believe me, you will understand more than you think. But don't look at the physicality, because you done it once. Now you go above it. Try to work. Try, as he said, go and wash dishes or cook, and you are listening. and enjoy like a song, and try to imagine what he's speaking and what he's, like a story. Then you will understand it. You will live it, I think, and you will love it. Believe me, this is my experience with Mr. Cash. Thank you.
Yes,
Oh, go ahead, Andreas.
I wanted also to say, like for me today, it was the first time of translating Alex directly. I have to be honest, I was afraid of it because Alexander uses different vocabularies, and yeah, it comes out of Canada. And I mean, he's not different totally, but he has other understanding. And with Jalal, I translated him the last half year. And today it was not easy of technical problems, and suddenly the meeting was over and it was not so good. But yeah, as I tried today, at the beginning it was hard, but suddenly I started to understand Alexander, because I really pay my full attention to understand him. And this understanding suddenly is, I don't know if I can say it like that, I feel then Alexander, I feel how he means the things, and this understanding makes, yeah, it's beautiful. And it's the same with every teacher, or with maybe all communications what we have. As soon we understand something, we reach a level of a beauty. And yeah, I hope it was not the last time, Alexander, and I want to thank you for understanding and sharing with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Andreas, for all your work you're doing in the background so the others could become more enlightened.
I saw that you had technical difficulties. I hope that I went slow enough.
You did.
If I went any slower, I'd be stopped.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I
They are diluting you.
I really thank the Spanish community, and now I thank you, Andreas, for doing what you're doing. It's a tremendous feat. I guess Jalal is translating for the Swedish community. I'm not exactly sure. This is something going on there.
I am translating to the Arabic and the Swedish because I am alone. So I am translating to myself.
Yeah, you're doing a wonderful job. And I also want to make a special note to Myrna's for contributing her insight into understanding this particular discussion. The one thing I just want to bring up to everybody is I have purposely avoided talking about this because it's, I'm a student and this is beyond me. However, the time has come that, we really have to jump into this head first, whole body, soul, and understand this, how it's working, because we have reached an existential crisis, and enough's enough. We have to cross the bridge.
I have a question. You mentioned that the soul, when we go to sleep, and we've heard this taught as well, that the soul goes across the universe and interacts in different, perhaps, dimensions and with other souls and so on. And I thought that was the way it was, but then I've heard, or I've been thinking, does the soul actually leave the body? Wouldn't that be like taking the battery out of the clock in a way, since the soul is the power source of this mechanism? Does it leave the body or does it expand its fields?
Yeah, terrific question. So it expands its fields, and in the process of expanding its fields, it leaves the body, but it is connected, so that it can come back on short notice. What I tried to talk about in the last couple of weeks is the difference between the shallow state of sleep and the deep state. And we really, at this point in time, don't have the skill to remember our deep sleep dreams. We only remember our shallow state dreams. And so this has contributed to our understanding of what is the difference between Earth space and outer space. And so we have to understand it's the same thing. Outer space consists of a near space, which is called inner space, and an outer space, which is called deep space. So the soul of the man is a deep space traveler. The soul of the body is an inner space traveler. And so this is something that I'll be addressing in the advanced teachings, but you know, Mr. Kesh has mentioned this in the last 2-3 months, not directly, but this is what he's talking about. We are the Kesh Foundation Spaceship Institute. So that is why, because we are the space travelers. So we just need to understand how we are doing this. And that, of course, is advanced knowledge.
Yes, because I would think there's a lot of processes going on in the body at night, the draining or the rebuilding. In the day, you lose some of your energies, perhaps from the environment, but at night, you're more absorbing these energies. So I would think the soul needs to be there to conduct some of these interactions.
It's the rate of change, Mark. So, you know, if you are healing faster than you're damaging yourself, then the overall process is healing. But if you are damaged from the environment, and then additionally, if you are a leaker, okay, so you are damaging yourself faster than you're healing. So this leads to the depletion of your vitality. So the vitality comes from the universe, because the universe is the benevolent giver.
Jalal, you have your mic open. Did you want to add something there? And then we'll go to John. I see John.
I'm
has
sorry,
just
I'm
joined.
sorry, it's open.
No,
Sorry.
it's okay. I see John has just joined us, and Arizona has been mentioned quite prominently in a number of the teachings, especially with the flags. I always thought the flags were going to be left out of Arizona, as Mr. Kesh had said, that at that time that was probably correct. Now I see we have the flags coming together in a way, and it's peace who's going to win. None of the flags are going to win. I know that.
Hi, Mark. I'll just say that the flags are like a seed in the ground, where we're showing that there are people in the United States and around the world who don't buy into some of the rhetoric of, you know, this nation's bad or that nation's bad. There's people in every country that are good, and we recognize that, and we're proud to be a part of what's coming forward out of Iran. And you know, we wear that with the flags. Very shortly, we hope that with the negotiations coming this week here, that the leaders will see that the old paradigm no longer works, and that the grassroots movement is taking hold and will lead the way to the future.
And
That's what I
don't you think, John, that all this, the whole planet is going through was sort of, in a way, meant to bring us together in a way? It's not, as Mr. Kesh said, the corona is not all that bad.
it was more to wake us up, that,
Uh-huh.
you know, do we want to have the existing paradigm continue, or do we want to change it? And I think what we're finding is a lot of people saying we want to change it. We're no longer in agreement that we're willing to have other people take our freedom and dictate to us, you know, what's best for us when they don't have our best interest at heart.
Didn't our own president say they're looking for new knowledges and new technologies? And here they
Yes,
are.
I heard that. They're here, and it will be a game changer. And it'll come from the grassroots up, not from the top down.
Thank you, John. I know you're going to be part of a leading role in this, even at the university level and so on, with a wellness center and with teachings and with manufacturing, perhaps on a smaller way. I'm not exactly sure. I know the structure is set, but you're an integral part of it. And thank you for all your service to the community.
You know, the energies of everybody make a difference.
Could you repeat that? I didn't quite hear you.
The energies of everybody make a difference. And that's why, you know, that with this peace negotiations or the 5+1 coming up, you know, when we provide our energies to that that group, it makes a big difference. It's like we till the soil before we plant the seed.
And wasn't it so interesting that we all have different field strengths that can add to the collective awareness or the enlightenment, that what you provide, I can't maybe provide, but what I provide, maybe you can't provide. And so that's why it's so important for all of us, I think, to participate. You may not realize you have a certain key that's needed there. And by your participation makes it, in other words, we used to say, if you don't help, we could lose. So we want everybody to be involved in this, I think. And again, it's a test and an exercise for us as well. I think we'll be using it more often than not in the coming weeks and months. Moving things with our soul and changing certain situations or certain conditions without having to physically go there and yell and scream and carry placards and march around, and that doesn't work. And he told us it doesn't work.
I agree with you, Mark. You know, I always used to, when I was getting ready for a big presentation at my business, I would always set the stage before the meeting by sending my energies of love and compassion into the room before the meeting started. And the result was that the meeting and the presentation tended to go smoothly. Again, it's tilling the soil before you plant the seeds.
Thank you for enlightening us, John.
Hello?
Go right ahead, Daniela.
About the last topic of soul traveling, and I feel like we are double beings. we have one life here and the other life when we sleep. And we live in another dimension and we have experience there. And it's like we are double. What do you guys think about this? Can you guys say something?
I can say something. So you're correct, Danilo. Yeah, it is double. And that's actually one of the unique good characteristics, but it's also a problem. And the reason for that is because we have encouraged a disconnect. It was never intended to be a disconnect. This is a man-made construct. And it's a man-made construct that is violating universal principles. So when we say we are seeking the greater oneness, that in fact is the oneness of the soul of the man. And the oneness with the soul of the man with other souls of the man. And that is the oneness with the soul of the man and your own soul of the body. So the thing is that the essence of the plasma is a composite. So it begins with the antimatter, and the antimatter being the strongest field interacts with the dark matter and the mattergen. And so the plasma itself is not just one of. The plasma is a composite. So the soul itself is a composite, and the ability to split the soul up is really a way for us to transmutate through different dimensions. But it was never intended to separate us. So what we're seeing, the way that we can travel from Earth space to inner space to outer space, this is how the plasma works. And so we're using these vehicles to assist us in learning, because the overriding mentality here, or shall we say, the overall intention here is to prevent us from going into outer space, because this would be unlimiting the possibilities. And so that's what the majority wish. This is what the normal society wishes. So there are those who have put us in quarantine on this planet. And then there are those who put us in quarantine from the universal community. Not the same group of people. And the universe is normal. You can see that because of its vastness and our tiny little perfect world. And we are on this planet normal because there's over 7 billion of us who are wanting peace and harmony and vitality and heaven on earth. So to combine these two fields together is really more importantly to make the connection. It's the connection that has been failed. And the thing is that this is a man-made failure. However, it's not a point to point blame. It's a point to be aware and understand now that we have a new capability. We have always had this capability, but we now have an opportunity to manifest this in our physicality, because there's nothing wrong with physicality. It's just that we have to understand that the manifestation of physicality comes from the substructure of the plasma reality. You cannot have a physical reality without a plasma reality. So the plasma reality is the minimum field interaction. And it may or may not manifest itself into a physical reality. So the manifestation of the plasma reality depends on a magnetical gravitational field interaction. Interaction with what? So the soul of the body interacts with the soul of the man. And there's a magnetical gravitational interaction there. That's two fields. All right, you have a point of reference. You have a here and you have a there. Well, you know what? There's an in-between. Okay, so we are in between with respect to our physical reality here. And we have a purpose. So this is part of our journey, is to learn our purpose and just rest assured. First of all, the universe is a benevolent place, so there's nothing to fear. And we have a purpose, so know that. So this eliminates depression right off the bat. So manifest this from a point of strength, not a point of weakness. Because this planet is weak in its existence as it is now. So give. We are stronger. Give. That's why we're here. And the feedback will go to the universal community because they have the same problem. So we are the universal functionaries to achieve that. Thank you, Dilution.
Let me throw out,
Go ahead.
let me throw out this idea, if you will. He talks about, you know, another aspect of our soul. Perhaps if you think about it, there are multiple aspects of our soul that are available to us, and the more that we can connect to them, the more we can find out about ourselves. So there's been talk about 13 aspects of ourselves that we pull together to make us whole. So it's food for thought. You know, I think when we get into creation of new pieces of technology, what we're doing is we're putting an aspect of our soul into these devices. And does that aspect of our soul now become another piece of us that we can connect with at any point in time? So I think there's more to think about in this big picture than just maybe, you know, you and your twin soul, or you and your, you know, higher self. I think there's maybe more to life than maybe we fully realize.
And
Go ahead.
I think Dan wanted to add something to the knowledge. I'm just walking right now, but Mr. Kesh also gave a drawing of these thinner beings in the brain and so on as well. We know this double hemispheric brain. When he said this is not exclusive to man, but it is unique in the universe, I thought, wow, how special we are. That we're one of the only with a double hemispheric brain, but apparently that's going to be made into one, as my initial understanding of that teaching was, that we're going to operate with a one-part brain, and perhaps in the future as we grow and the fields in the universe change and we grow into different emotions, let's say. But Dan, would you like to? Dan says, Alex, if you will allow me, in relation to deep sleep, I could present measurements of my personal sleep. of course, if there is time and place. Dan, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm waiting the confirmation.
You got it. Alex, I don't think Alex is opposed at all.
Confirmed. Go for it, Dan.
Thank you. Because I thinking don't be selfish myself. I achieve this measurement when you're saying about deep sleep, and I present only few graphics for seeing how it's measure this. I take the screen. Okay.
We see your screen.
You continue to talk, and I put the red, it's easy sleep. The pink, it's REM sleep, and deep sleep, it's with the purple by wire in the bottom. And it's hour and minute here. Let me annotate. It indicates the minute and the hour in the night. And only let's say to the picture when and yellow it's when it's awake. Continue to talk, I mute, and I let to see the cycle of different state of sleep.
I don't think either one of the souls sleep, do they, Dan? It's just the physicality itself that rests. Both are aware of each other, and both are, I think, awake most of the time. Or one half of the brain is resting and the other half is aware of what's going on, perhaps.
All the time the brain is awake. It never sleep. It's only the manifestation. Let's say this is the measurement, electrical measurement, or I don't know how to interpret in the physical matter, but it's for seeing, for knowing how it's interpreting when you have a EEG or no, proportional to the time of sleeping.
And is it true, Dan, that when we go into space, there's so much energy that sleep basically won't be required?
You know, sometimes you sleep half an hour and you are rest. Another time you sleep half a day and you are tired. Depending how you perceive this relaxing state of dreaming. Sometimes I sleep during the day in the automatic pilot, let's say. I work, but in the same time, one part of me, my soul, it's in another place, another time. You see here, for example, it's
I feel, sorry.
yes, Bandito.
I feel that the dream world is like your personal world, and because I can fly in my dreams, but only I can fly. And the other day I was teaching a couple how to fly. It's like something personal, you know. I really don't understand. I just want to add this.
You see, sometimes I have a proportional between deep sleep and REM sleep with waking times. It's only for showing. I don't know, perhaps somebody else understand more.
How
May I
did
make
you-
a comment?
Oh, go ahead, Alex.
No, I mute myself. Perhaps it's better. Please, Alex.
Well, this is terrific because you're actually showing 3 different energy states.
4.
And so my comment was that the near state, the shallow dream, I mean, the shallow sleep state is our dream state. And so this was corroborated by what Danilo just said. Then his dream is his own personal dream. And this is what I said when I was discussing dream state. Your dream is your state. So that's why if you go to a fortune teller, you're trying to ask about, you're trying to ask someone else about the state of the universe when you were actually shown the state of the universe in your dream. So that is your dream. It's no one else's dream. But when we get into the deep state, this is when the souls interact. And I'm going to say that at this point in time, and I'm speaking for me personally, I don't believe that I am capable of remembering those dreams in the physicality, as in the physical memory that I have. But there's no doubt in my mind that is impacting my life because I see the changes. So we have to trust. We have to trust in the universe that it can provide. So you're just showing the vehicle and saying, well, so each state has a neighbor state, and the in-between is the transition state. So that's your 3. You have a here and a there and an in-between. And then you go to the next state, you have a here and a there and an in-between. And the here and the there are the magnetical gravitational relationships. So if you're going into a higher energy state, so you're going in the magnetical, and if you're coming into a lower energy state, then you're going into the gravitational. So that is by definition, the gravitational definition is going into a lower state, and the physicality is the lowest state. And that is why it is requiring energy supplementation. However, it's the way we supplement our energy that is now coming into question. And with the plasma science, we now have the answer for that. So now it's a matter for us to practice. Thank you both.
Can I give you some more food for thought? Is it possible that we can set the stage for what it is that we dream at nighttime, and thus what it is that we create when we're asleep? It's my thought that we can. So a lot of times what I will do is I will, before I go to sleep, is I will set the stage for what it is that I wish to create during my sleeping time. I don't always remember what it is that I'm doing, but by setting that intention before I go to sleep, it's my thinking that that's what it is that I'm creating while I'm sleeping in the springtime.
So may I answer that?
Of course, this is an open discussion.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. In my opinion, you're 100% correct. But that is the feedback loop. So there is a loop. There's a feeding and there's a feedback. So the feedback is the environment. So you are looking at what you have succeeded with physically, and you're seeing what you need. And so that is your feedback. And so what you're doing is absolutely excellent. We don't do that enough as a human species. And the other thing is our interaction with respect to that is on a small scheme. It's looking at, you know, when you say our, what's going on? Let me try this again, sorry. So when we're looking at our small scheme, we're looking at it from a personal basis. The soul looks at it from the universal basis. So that's why, you know, we're dealing with a nearness. So our inner space or shallow dream state is where we can accomplish this, and we make the preparations for the next stage. And that is our wish. But our intent going to our core, which is our soul, that is in line with the Creator. And really, if you are looking at history and saying, well, we have a meeting on Sunday, November the 28th. What is the meaning of that in history? When you look at some elements in our history are like the pyramids, are looking at not November 28th, but they're looking at intervals of 2,160 years. So clearly, our immediate concern is this 24-hour period. Whereas when we look at the universe, it is astrological. We have, you know, sure, we have 12 elements of the zodiac, and one got kicked out, right? So the thing is that when you add all these things together, 2,160 times 13, and so you find that this time frame has a bigger scheme, and we don't have the desire or the capability within our 24-hour period to decipher that. So we're working on a nearness, but there is a farness, and there's nothing wrong with that, because that is the overall plan of which we are part of. And this comes from the plasma dilution technology. It's understanding how this energy is transmutated from that extremely high energy state to our extremely low energy state. So yeah, I totally agree with you, John.
John, you know what I thought about when you said that was I asked Mr. Kesh a question several weeks ago about, I didn't understand what we're doing when we're using the wires to create our reactors, because the wires are a matter state and the energies are in a plasmatic state. And he showed me the obvious, that the wires were, I mean, they're physical, but physicality is just a state of matter. But then he said, I mean, of plasma, the lowest state of plasma. But then he said, what we're doing is we're showing the plasma a direction by using the matter state. And when you said we use our intention to set our dream state, it just seemed to correspond to me.
Well said, Ed. Well said.
And at one point, I heard that our soul of physicality is going to ride the soul of the man right across the universe. I would always think it would be the opposite. The more knowledgeable one would be taking the hand of the less knowledgeable one. But it looks like this soul of physicality has an important role to play in where you want to go and what you want to do around the universe. But I would think it would be just the opposite. I know we're supposed to embrace the two souls, not so much put one in the knapsack or in your pocket or something, but it just seems opposite of what the all-powerful one should be leading the less powerful one, but it looks like it's going to be just the opposite, where your soul of physicality is going to dictate to the soul of the man where you want to go and what you want to see and explore in the universe. Anyone else would like to come in here and voice an opinion, a disagreement, an objection? Selena?
Yeah, I have a question for the Alex. We say always teenager sleep deep sleep. What is the reason for that? Very deep.
I'm sorry, there was a audio problem. Can you repeat, please?
Like we have children, right? The teenager one, they sleep a lot and then very deep. Why?
Oh,
If we-
they are growing. Healing and growing are the same thing, and they consume an enormous amount of energy, which is really not being provided on this planet. So, you know, before we were born, we were of a certain energy state, and then we come to this planet, which is a low energy state. So you see that, you know, babies have to sleep an enormous amount, and adults are happy for it.
I remember when I was teenager, I used to sleep, and then if somebody try to wake me up, I used to feel I am between dead and sleep, not sleep and woke. I'm between dead and sleep. My soul, wherever, I don't know where was my soul, but when I come back, it was the very, very tiring and exhausting. I can't walk right away. I took some time to wake up. And I saw those kinds of stuff this day. The same thing is happening to the teenager. Yeah, where was my soul that time?
You're talking about a disruption now. So, you know, it's like Dan said, you know, you go to sleep and maybe for a few minutes and then you come back and you're refreshed. It is because the decision to go to sleep and to come back is mission accomplished. But, you know, what you're talking about is mission interrupted. And we're having way too much of that on this planet. We don't have respect. We don't have respect for a sleep state. There are many, many people who feel that sleeping is a waste of time and is a loss of our, you know, awakened state. But, you know, with the plasma science, the way it's been taught, this is patently incorrect. So we are always, how should we say it? We're always alive, because the soul is eternal. And because the universe is eternal and the creator has made it so. So it's our little tiny perfect world here that is having some problems, but it is not localized here only. It is affecting the near space environment. And we are now getting help. we are getting help from others who don't have the capability of manifesting into the physicality as well. So Mr. Cash has referred to that many, many times, and so has John and John Blevins. So this is the future, and I think it's a wonderful prospect. And you know, if I have a choice of which prospect I'm going to look forward to, that is the future that I'm going to look forward to. So hence, we're talking about the plasma dilution, because that's where the future is.
Yeah, thank you. My sleeping pattern right now is totally different. Now is I can go different places and totally different than before. Yeah.
The one thing I would like to add, though, is that don't go with fear. And I know you don't. I know you're doing a wonderful job. So you have cultivated a skill that probably most of us haven't yet in terms of our awareness. So you're more advanced in that regard, and I compliment you for that. Go with confidence and understand that you will always be safe, because your soul will always protect you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Anyone else? Could we hear from someone we haven't heard from so far? And I'm not referring to Mr. Kesh, but one of the other knowledge seekers that are here.
Mark, look at the lineup here. It's all foreigners. God bless you all. Thank you. Thank you for making this such a wonderful event. And I just want to thank everybody for allowing me to present here. The North American Corona International Team Meeting. Let's pray for peace, everyone. Peace all around the world. Peace all around. Thank you.
All right, is there anyone who'd like to add anything else or share some knowledge, perhaps? I was always amazed by my sister, who was injured by a, let's say, a serum when she was in first grade, and now she's in her late 50s and has the brain of about a 2-year-old. But I was always amazed the amount of sleep she likes, or rest. She'd always want to be on the couch with the blanket over her head. And now I couldn't understand why, but now I think I'm understanding why, because maybe the soul is traveling, or even though her physicality, she has good motor skills, but again, the mind is very young, let's say. And now that I'm thinking about it and have been thinking about it, perhaps her soul is traveling around and interacting in that dimension, since she really can't do it in the physicality. And I'm hoping, John, that one day we could get the vision and brain enhancement system for my sister to possibly use in some shape or form, because that was my mother's wish for many years, that we could find a way to, and we did many things, patterning with the Domen Delicato method, what's called patterning, where we had people in our home 7 days a week, 10 hours a day. And we brought missionaries from Africa to pray and cast out demons and so on. But I think this technology with the brain and vision enhancement, and we saw what was done with Naomi and so on, that the brain or the parts of the brain, like I said, the motor skills are excellent. But if she's not under supervision, she'll just run out into the street most likely. And this whole idea of sleep now, I'm thinking she's interacting on the soul or the plasma level perhaps, where she can't really do it in the physicality. Even though, she, like I said, she has good motor skills, can walk well and even run or swing on a swing. But the neurological is only about the age of a 2 or 3-year-old. And so I'm, you know, that makes me very skeptical about what's going on now as well. And we've seen this, but I'm hoping somehow in some way, even though she's under a state care, because we couldn't afford to have nurses and all that day and night, we'll be able to somehow take advantage of this brain emotional vision enhancement system. And I think that will come to pass as well.
You know, I'm very anxious to, once we receive the units, to be able to make a difference, to be able to start to make a difference in people's lives. You know, we have to go through the cycle of understanding the new tools that are available to us. And once we're able to do that and show some, you know, significant results, it'll get the attention of the world.
No question.
Which will mean more than you know, the money and the dollars and cents, because you're now changing the dynamics of the communities in which these people are going back into. They're different people.
Right, and especially this idea of restoring the dignity to the man, as we saw in China, as we've seen in the orphanages. And perhaps we need more reports on what happened in the prison per se, that maybe some of the dignity of the officers has been returned and some of the dignity of the ones that are captured in a way, or inmates, what they call, in these correctional facilities, can also be, we know they will be dramatically changed and their dignity will be brought back to them. And this is priceless.
Some of the changes are subtle, you know, so you may not get somebody coming out and saying, oh, my whole life's been changed, but yet their whole life has been changed. They don't even realize what has happened to them. And this is kind of the way the universe works. You know, what he talked about, the soul of Mitra, and how, you know, it's like you know, one light lightens up the next light, and that lights up the next light. It's like that, and sometimes you don't even know that you're doing it, you know, just through your presence. So the people coming out of these units, you know, have the potential to become those light bulbs.
Yes, and I have the vision glasses, and I just received the butterfly, and I think there's small changes going on in the background, maybe that I'm not totally aware of. I mean, I didn't float up to the ceiling or do any of these strange, you know, not strange, but out of the norm things. But to me, and what I'm sensing is there's small changes going on within me in a way.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's kind of how the GANs works. You know, sometimes some people, you know, have a significant reaction. Sometimes another person has a subtle reaction. It's not that that subtle reaction isn't there. It's that they were maybe looking for something bigger than what happened. You know, and same thing with the glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, you know, the expectation is that you were going to, you know, see visions at night or whatever, and because you didn't get those, you think it didn't work, but in fact maybe it did work.
Oh, yes, there's definitely subtle changes taking place, I would say. Again, on a plasmatic level, not so much in the physicality that I'm seeing change yet. But yes, this knowledge is so vast and so immense. As you said, John, even with referring to the soul, there could be so much. And again, we've just started to teach in the last couple of years about the soul, and especially look at the universe as well. How many dimensions and how many understandings and knowledges are out there for us to absorb. It's just immense. But we're growing, we're all growing little by little, and we will learn to use these systems that we have within us. I think our system is much more complex than even we're even aware of in its relation to ourselves and in relation to the universe at large. It's just vast and immense.
Good
Okay,
evening, Mark.
yes, good evening.
You hear me?
Clearly.
God bless. Just wanted to have a very big thank to Alex. As always, he delivers beautiful teaching. And may God bless him and give him a lot more insight as he's really enlightened. And hopefully we'll catch up somehow, somewhere, sooner than ever. I just wanted to say something about the vision, the glass, the goggles. I've been using it since July. I use it every night religiously. Perhaps once or twice I haven't used it. I use it to sleep with. So it's minimum 6 to 7 hours. You could say on average, I use it on my eyes while I'm sleeping. One thing I've definitely found out that 95% of my dreams, I haven't got a clue what it is. I am in such a deep sleep. I've never experienced it. So it doesn't matter whether it was one night or since July. Every night is the same. I sleep so deep and I hardly remember my dreams. Sometimes some of the dreams I remember, they're extremely weird dreams that it is like, it's a bit shocking, like, I would have never dreamed things like that before, but I've had a few dreams that I remember, but they were really, really shocking dreams. But yes, definitely a deep, perhaps as it's been discussed, most probably the soul travels way out in the space where I don't even know where my soul goes. This is definitely an experience that I've had, sort of what I share.
Yes, here's Andreas again. I have also the visual enhancement unit, and especially on naps at the noon, it's crazy how there come 20 dreams together with different people out of different times of my life, for example, or also dreams which make absolutely no sense. It's totally different. And what I thought before, I gained definitely more trust in life. But I can also see myself that a lot of time I have not that trust. And this, to realize that, helped me to check myself. Now I'm in a situation where I have not the trust that the soul is bearing all things already, and I can faster get to the point where I trust again and where life gets easy, where these emotions and this not trusting is not here. Yeah, and also interactions with other people. I mean, there are always tasks, or I had a few tasks. I don't know, challenges with two different people, but generally the interactions with other people are much more easier. There is no emotional, it just happens, and easy and in peace. And the more this trust is here, the easier happens everything from on. As like it would clean the soul from the physicality or the emotions between. Everything gets cleaner in a way. It's not more than that, but on the other side, it's a lot hard to describe, but it's definitely doing a visual enhancement unit.
Yes, these systems are allowing us to find out more about ourselves and our capabilities in so many things. And we thank the Keshe Foundation for that. No one is actually, the system is actually not the Keshe system, but the system we all live in has set out to prevent us from finding out about our soul and some of our capabilities. And so this is a huge, huge breakthrough for mankind, because we've sort of been kept in the dark about ourselves and, like I said, our immense capabilities. And we're just starting to learn through some of these systems of what we were capable of achieving. So we thank the Keshe Foundation. It's never been delivered like this before, or even to talk like this before. Even people are so uncomfortable about the soul. I used to be, in a way, and now I'm much more comfortable about just saying the word soul. It doesn't have that, you know, like you don't know anything about it or this or that. Now we're much sure in a small way about our souls, and that it does exist, and some of its capabilities, it's beautiful. No one's ever taught us this before in the universe, or at least on this planet. They've tried, they've sent prophets, but now this is a beautiful compilation of putting the whole totality together. And of course, I'm going to play tomorrow's future, which again, we're going to be receiving a beautiful gifts from the Creator. Not that we wait, we have to elevate our own or enlighten ourselves, but this idea of unifying the totality across the universe is just so phenomenal. And that we could be able to move from the dimension of the Creator to the dimension of Mitra in the physicality. I mean, who could have imagined these sort of systems? And again, most of the world has no clue of what's going on. They're in a different field, let's say, and I think it's part of our job to bring them out of that field of entanglement and ensnarement, which this is what the physicality, the life here seems to do, and trap us all into going down different routes and different streets, and they're all dead ends, but we don't know that till we get there. But now we're really being enlightened in a way, or just starting to be, let's say. And this change in the dimension, which has taken so long, and there was a reason for it, but we haven't found out the actual reason for this.
Let me say one thing about the glasses and the eye units. These are consciousness energy fields, and we have the ability to interact with these consciousness energy fields. So if our interactions are such that we wish to achieve something, then it will work to help us achieve that. If our interactions are empty and without inspiration or intent, they will do what it is we desire, which is nothing. So it's an interaction that takes place. If your soul is not ready for things to change, or that your life path is such that you're asking for things that the soul doesn't wish you to achieve, you won't achieve it. So if your plan is, that your life is not going to be, to live to 100, you won't live to be 100, no matter what you wish for, because there's a soul plan, and there's these consciousness energy fields that you'll interact with. You have the ability to move the conscious energy fields to support you in ways that you've never been able to achieve before. So with the eye units, when people go into them, there'll be some people that will show dramatic results and others that will get nothing out of them. It's because there's nothing being put in, nothing out. So that's kind of the way, and same thing with the eyeglasses and the GANS material. They're all consciousness energy fields, and we have to interact with them. That's why Mr. Kesh always talks about, sending love and the love energies into everything that you create. You're seeding them with those positive energy fields.
Thank you, John. Is there anyone else? I see a few people have joined us. Again, I'll ask, is there anyone here for the first time who'd like to tell us who they are, where they're from, and perhaps how you found this meeting today? As we heard from the gentleman in Australia, he's been a knowledge seeker for 15 years. That's the first time I've heard of him, but he is interacting there. But again, there's many knowledge seekers, I think, that are going to be coming more public, let's say, in the coming weeks and months. And we'll see many of these knowledge seekers sharing with us.